All right, hello fellow Guild Wars gamers, Muckluck here, and we've got some new news related to Guild Wars 3. Colin, who is the head of the chunk of ArenaNet who is working on this, did an interview with IGN and revealed a bunch of information that we do not already know. Also, there was a few Reddit posts that gave a few more scraps of information that we did not already know, specifically related to what the pricing model of the game is going to be, and a couple of other items that, such as like what was the other one? Oh, the timeline. He talked about when exactly in the Tyrion timeline this was going to be. Because at first we just knew, like, okay, it's before 1070. It's before Guild Wars 1. Then it's over 1,000 years before, which is still it's 5,000 years is over 1,000 years. And then we finally got something concrete here. So all of that and more in this episode of Muckluck News. Okay, here we go.
It has been a long time coming, but we now know that it's really real. Guild Wars 3 was just revealed, the next MMORPG from ArenaNet. And here to talk with us as much as we can about it is studio head Colin Johansson. How you doing, sir?
I'm great, thank you. It has been an incredible last couple of days.
Yeah, make some noise, Guild Wars 3!
Thanks, everybody.
So, to kick things off, just can you give us a top-level overview? What are some of the big new ideas driving Guild Wars 3?
Yeah, we've announced that we're going to go into beta at the end of next year, and so we've got a lot of time between now and then that we're going to reveal most of the big ideas behind the game and kind of work our way through that. The two things so far that we've set out as core pillars for the game that we've announced, one of them is joy of movement. I think one of the things that the Guild Wars...
What real quick pause here. This creature, I saw a fan theory online recently that said, what if those are war claws? Because when you get a war claw through the World v World quest in Guild Wars 2, they talk about how it's a spirit that inhabits the armor that you're summoning for your mount. And if it's a spirit, that thing could be war claws from a long time ago. Now, it might also be just something completely different, but I thought it was a fun theory.
We've set out as core pillars for the game that we've announced. One of them is joy of movement. I think one of the things that the Guild Wars franchise is known for, coming out of Guild Wars 2 in particular, is offering this really spectacular form of movement in an MMO experience. And we're really trying to push that even further with Guild Wars 3 and asking the question, can we take some of the elements that you would traditionally find in action games and bring those into...
So quick pause here. The joy of movement in Guild Wars 2, I think is there's two sides to this. One is like in combat. Like most MMOs, not all of them, but many of them, like you have to hold still to cast spells. You've got a mana bar that you got to keep an eye on. After combat, you've got to sit down and rest to recover your health and mana. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but that's I feel like the industry standard. And then in Guild Wars 2, other than a few very powerful abilities, you don't have to hold still. You could be moving constantly. Your health just recovers very rapidly when you're out of combat. You don't have to sit down and rest. You can constantly be moving if you want to. Same thing with like watching a mana bar, things like that. And the second thing is the mounts. Guild Wars 2's mount system is praised, and the ideas have been copied by many, many things in the industry. I mean, not so long ago, WoW Dragonflight copied the Sky Scale and the Griffin system from Guild Wars 2. And that's not to say Guild Wars 2 hasn't taken some ideas from other MMOs. They have. But it's a very popular system because, like, original WoW, the mounts are just like a speed increase. The controls are the same. There's no momentum. There's no braking. It's just you feel exactly like normal, but you're 60 or 100% faster. The end. That's it. However, with Guild Wars 2, there's... what are we up to, like 9 or more different mounts now, and they've all got different turn rates. They've got different acceleration, deceleration, braking, how well they take corners, different moves they can use in combat, different openers in combat, stuff like that. And it's widely praised and often copied by other titles. So Guild Wars 3, the joy of movement, they apparently want to build on top of that even more, and we've already seen that guy wall running. Okay.
Multiplayer MMO experiences to create incredible new forms of joy of movement. And a lot of that is powered by momentum, which is a thing you don't see in MMOs. And so a lot of the movement in Guild Wars 3, your momentum transfers between all of the different things you do, which allows you to really express joy of movement in a unique way in an MMO. And then the other one that we've talked just a tiny bit about, and I'm going to leave it at that today, is our combat system. And I think that MMOs often are viewed as very specific types of combat, and we really wanted to look at, especially with this game now coming to both console for the first time, and trying to create a new era of MMOs, we really wanted to ask, how can we take some of the elements that you would find in action multiplayer combat games, or even just action RPGs, and bring those into the MMO space and extend them? And so our combat system is really something very unique that extends out on some of those ideas as well. That's as much as I'm going to say right now.
So, taking ideas from action combat games and pulling them into a Guild Wars 3, I'm really curious like what that could mean. Because like, for example, most MMOs, if you're hitting an enemy, it's just you hit him and his hit point bar goes down. But then you've got some action games where it depends on the spot of the enemy, you know? Like you hit them in the right arm enough and their right arm goes limp because it's injured and they can't attack you with that arm anymore. Like the different body parts would have, like there's like a smaller health bar on body parts, that you know, and also the bigger health bar for the overall creature. Or, you know, you've got things like Monster Hunter or Rise of the Colossus, where you can climb on top of the monster and things like that, and you can just like get up onto its back or its head and like stab it repeatedly if you're like a rogue type character. There was Dragon's Dogma, where you could have one, like the tank could like hold his shield up and then someone else could leap off the shield onto the enemy and start stabbing them. You could do like combo action attacks, things like that. So, there's many things he could mean, because, action combat, there's countless games that say they have action combat. I don't know which ones he is borrowing ideas from or, like, pulling inspiration from. So we will have to wait and see, but those are just some immediate thoughts off the top of my head.
A little bit of a tease. So we got the trailer kind of looping here. Can you walk us through what we're seeing in the trailer and what were some of the things that you wanted to convey with this trailer?
Yeah, so one of the big things that you'll see there is we're depicting the land of Ur, which is an incredible historical place in the history of Guild Wars. The very first Guild Wars took place there. The gods that originated in our world, we've told many stories in our lore about them existing in Ur and then disappearing and leaving the world. And we're setting this game 1,200 years before Guild Wars 1.
There it is. That's one of the things that I thought this was absolutely worth covering. 1,200 years before Guild Wars 1. Okay? Guild Wars 1 occurred in the year 1071, which means this is occurring in the year like minus 130. Or like 130 BE. That's kind of like how BC works in the real world. On top of that, I think this is a really good segue to pause the video and tell you about this Reddit post, okay? Colin was asked about the date and if he could clarify. And he said in this Reddit post, "We're still knocking the rust off getting out there and talking about a new game. We need to practice being more specific. That's my bad. We sometimes reference number of years to Guild Wars 1 or Guild Wars 2 without specifying which adds to the confusion. Pretty sure in the lore and the timeline video, I even said thousands of years, which is just a very wide ballpark window and will likely confuse some where Bobby uses the right timeline of over 1,000 years. Whoops. TLDR, our game begins shortly after Grenth becomes a god, before the Exodus or the First Guild War. More info soon." So, I know a little bits and pieces about this. I know Grenth, I believe, dethroned Doom and kind of took his job to become a god. You guys are welcome to correct me if I'm wrong. I consider Wooden Potatoes to be a lot more intelligent than me when it comes to the lore stuff. The Exodus was when the gods were like, "We're done with you guys. You couldn't be trusted with magic. We're leaving." And the gods all just whoop, whoop, whoop. And they basically left the mortal plane and went up to heaven or whatever the equivalent is up there. They've got their own realms. Balthazar has his burning realm, and Melandru has a realm that looks very like kind of like heaven in movies and stuff like that. So before the Exodus, so the gods have not left yet, but it's after Grenth becomes a god. So this is a lot more specific than anything that we've heard so far. Are we going back in time? No. If you have missed previous videos, this is basically a prequel There's, to our current knowledge, there is no time travel shenanigans. This is simply, this MMO takes place very much in the past, and so they can tell a whole bunch of stories. Like, for example, the Guild Wars 1 is not named that because you can do guild versus guild PvP. It is named that because there was a thing in Tyria called the Guild Wars that happened, and it was named after that. It's kind of like if we had a historical game that happened right after World War II, and the game was called World War II. Yeah, it would be like that kind of comparison. So this is happening right before the first Guild War, which means this might actually be the first game where we see a Guild War, like the actual one from the lore. So, all right, there's our timeline. Let's continue.
Just before the first Guild War breaks out, just after one of the gods has been deposed, and we see this as a really incredible opportunity to go back to a place in our world that there isn't a lot of written history about, but what there is incredibly interesting, and there are a huge amount of the mysteries and the stories behind the entire concept of Guild Wars all originate from this timeline. The other reason that we picked it is we think all of those reasons are awesome for our existing fans and a reason for them to engage. But we're inviting an entire new audience to join this game and to join the Guild Wars franchise for the first time. We're inviting players on PlayStation to come join us and play, and console gamers have never been able to play a Guild Wars game before. We didn't ship Guild Wars 2 on Steam until 10 years after launch. We're going to ship Guild Wars 3 on Steam on day one when we launch this time. And we really wanted to send a message out to everyone that this is a game for everyone to come play Guild Wars right now. And you don't have to have played 20 years of this franchise to understand what's going on in Guild Wars 3. Everybody is coming in on relative equal footing. There is just a small amount of recorded history about this timeline, and so all of our new players and all of our existing fans all get to discover the lore and the timeline and the stories all together. And because there's very little that's actually recorded, even though it is set 1,000 plus years in the past, there's an incredible amount of stuff for people to discover and find out and mysteries to unravel that we think is going to be compelling for everybody. And so you're seeing some little pieces here of Ore and some of the spirits that live in Ore, the gods that live in Ore, and those are just some little
So, real quick pause there. When he says the gods that live in Ore, he's talking about these right here. These are the human gods at that point in time.
And some of the spirits that live in Ore, the gods that live in Ore, and those are just some little teases for more stories to come later.
All right. So you guys are announcing an open beta in 2027. I know that's a long ways off, but are there any details you can share about your approach to the gameplay this time around in anticipation for that open beta?
I appreciate that. I think I'll take that a little more high level and say one of the really unique things about ArenaNet is we have a very unique approach to making new games. And at most studios, when they start making a new game, they think about what is the gameplay that we want to have, what's the story we want to tell, what technology or cool feature do we want to base this game on. And especially in the case when you're making like part 2 or part 3 of a series, oftentimes the question is, what are all the things we're going to carry forward, and then the new feature we'll add to make it cool. And ArenaNet has never viewed making games that way. We start with player problems, and we make MMORPGs, so we start by asking, what are all the player problems and frustrations in the genre at this time? And back when
Quick pause. I remember when Guild Wars 2 came out, and they specifically said, we don't want to have a holy trinity, and they kind of went back on that. They kind of halfway backpedaled on that, but they didn't want to have just the standard trinity of tank, DPS, and healer. And also they didn't want to have sub-fees. Like, those were things that they considered to be problematic, and they got rid of. Oh my god. I can't get away from them.
We were making Guild Wars 1. One of the big ones was that every online game had a subscription fee. So we set out to make a game that would have no subscription fees, that anyone could play as much or as little as they want, and they could always play with their friends. When we set out to make Guild Wars 2, we wanted to make a giant open world MMO, the scale of all these other games that were out at the time, and solve for the problems that existed in those types of games. And so we made a world where players don't get put in conflict with one another, where it's easy to play with other players, and other players actually make the game more fun. And starting with those player problems...
Quick pause on that. Back when Guild Wars 2 came out, at that point in time, when in World of Warcraft was like, let's say someone else found a rare mob and they were fighting it, and you walked by and you saw them fighting the rare mob. The best thing for you that you could possibly do is get a bunch of other mobs and train them and try to get them killed so the mob would reset, then you take the rare mob. And that was the kind of behavior that the systems in that game encouraged. Guild Wars 2, like right from the get-go, if someone is fighting a rare mob and you join in, one, like you get a copy of the loot. Two, their combat finishes more quickly because you joined in. Even if you joined in for greedy reasons, it helps both people. The first person is done with their fight faster. Maybe you save them. The second person gets a copy of the loot. So they just, right from like the get-go, they have done systems like this to encourage it to where even if you're doing it for the wrong reason, you know, you're doing a good thing.
Our core means every one of our games is very, very different. They take place in Tyria, they draw from the same like core lore, but they're on different timelines and they're very different game experiences because they solve for different problems in the era of game that we're making it in. And we feel like right now, the genre that we make our game in the MMO genre, and we've consistently heard this from all of you too, that you feel like this genre is ready for something new, that it is stagnated, that we've all been playing the same games for the most part for over a decade.
It's ready for high guard.
And I think this is when ArenaNet's at its best, when we challenge ourselves and say, let's go solve for the problems and innovate. And it's risky, it's a challenging thing to do. We could trip and fall flat on our face by trying to...
Resource competition as well. Yeah, like you could have, in early WoW, you might like find a mithril vein, and you would run up to it and there's mobs, and you're fighting those mobs, and while you're fighting the mobs, someone else could run up and start mining the vein. And you would be fighting for your life and like trying to cuss them out at the same time. Major multitasking. But in Guild Wars 2, all of us see separate nodes. We see separate trees to chop down. We see separate, crops that we can pick up, stuff like that. And because of that, like, you don't suddenly get mad at somebody else if you see them chopping down a tree. It's such a simple thing, but...
It's a challenging thing to do. We could trip and fall flat on our face by trying to invent new ideas and then wrap our game around those. But I don't think game genres move forward unless people are willing to do that. And so we are going to fearlessly charge forward and try a bunch of new ideas. And we really hope people love them, and we're going to find out over the next couple of years.
I fully agree. Now I want to go back to that the no subscription model.
In WoW, you had to fight over nodes, question mark? Yes. So in early WoW, now it's been a while since I played WoW. I don't know if they've changed this, but for most of WoW, if like someone mined a node, that node vanished off the map until it respawned hours later. Like there was a finite amount of resources on a map, and there was no instances of a map. It's just like there was one of that map, and if someone mined that node, it's gone for everyone for a while.
But first, we actually have some exclusive artwork that came through. If we can pull that up, and if you can just kind of walk us through what's...
Ooh. Okay, we have seen this artwork, but it was cropped right here. This archer dude wasn't in the shot. And is that an upside down city in the background? It's like WoW Shadowlands back there. Very interesting. So yeah, we've seen this picture, but it ended right where my mouse is, right here. This bit over here was not on what we saw.
What's happening here?
I can. So first off, kudos to Kekai, one of our incredible concept artists who made this piece early on in development. And this is really an inspiration piece going back to what are we trying to do with combat in this game?
Oh yeah, someone pointed out there's someone here that's like sprinting or falling or something. They're like really low to the ground. There's the archer, and then there's this guy doing like the anime lightning sword slash. It looks like he just like cut through this thing's arm. And is this guy looks like he's got... Okay, for a second I thought his arm was made of water. Like he was elemental. But now I'm thinking that this guy like froze the arm. Like it's like frozen and shattering. And then I love this. It looks like he's got like a part of a tree trunk as like a shield on his arm.
And I mentioned earlier one of our goals is to take elements you would traditionally find more in action games and to try to figure out which of those can make their way into an MMO experience. We started from the very beginning having this game be playable both on a controller and mouse and keyboard, and challenged ourselves, can we make a combat system that feels awesome on both? Which is generally not the case for MMOs. They tend to start as mouse and keyboard and then get ported to a controller later. And a lot of the great inspirations that we could find are single player RPGs or multiplayer RPGs, but not MMOs so much in that space. And so,
not from MMOs, but I've had so many bad experiences of a game that, like, I've said this before, but if a game says, like, this is for controller, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not going to complain about it. It's not for me. I'm not purchasing that product. That's not for me. But if they say supports mouse and keyboard and I buy it and I find out that it was like made for controller and they did the most half-assed attempt at making it work on mouse and keyboard, it's really noticeable. It's like ordering a burger with no pickles and they put pickles on it, but then they caught it before it left the kitchen and then they pulled it off, but the pickle juice has already tainted the whole product. Like, you can tell. Like, it's, you can tell. So it's, I hope that it's not like that. The worst is the item wheel. When you've got like one button that's like next item, next item, next item, and another one that's use item. So it's like you're rolling through the wheel trying to find your healing potion.
So this concept art piece really is aspirational.
Say the name
for
of
us.
the games, dude. There's so many, like the Horizon games, some of the God of War games, Elden Ring. Loved Elden Ring. I cleared it. I got good. The controls on mouse and keyboard were terrible. It's awful.
So this is the type of experience we want to chase after. Can we make more action combat in a way that you wouldn't have seen in an MMO before?
So going back to that subscription model, the first Guild Wars was notable for being, one of the only, if not the only, MMOs out there that didn't.
Even the people that work at ArenaNet themselves have said that they don't consider Guild Wars 1 an MMO. But I get what he's getting at.
Require a subscription. You're continuing that with Guild Wars 3, and I wonder, how does that influence how you build and design the game?
It's a great question. I think you have to think about questions like that fundamentally from the very beginning as you construct your game. And I think we have a very long history at ArenaNet. Again, when you start with solving for player problems and making games for players first, it forces us to ask a lot of these questions. How do we make a game that players can play as much or as little as they want? I think there's a lot of challenges with the MMO space right now where there's a perception for players, and I'm sure many of you have felt this, of like, hey, somebody tries to tell you to go play this next great MMO, and your first reaction is, I don't have time for that. It's like a second job, and you have to basically give up a chunk of your life to engage with many MMOs. And I think that perception and solving for that perception is something that we've always wanted to continue to solve for at ArenaNet. We started it with no subscription fees. Our concept of horizontal progression, where you can play our game for a while, take a break, go play other games, that's okay. We don't have anything that's holding you hostage to keep playing, and then come back when you see something cool you want to play again. All of that inspiration and concept is being applied to Guild Wars 3 as well.
I think a big part of that is it's twofold. One is the subscription fee thing. I'm sure some of you have maybe like it can be a game, it can be a gym membership, it can be just something else. It could be anything. But if you're paying for a subscription fee, there might be a night where you have free time and you're like, I really don't want to play bleh, but I paid for it, so I should. And you kind of like some part of your brain in the back is like forcing you to play the thing, even like if it wasn't for the sub fee, maybe you'd play something else that night. And like the other thing is like in the gameplay. If you've got a vertical progression MMO, you constantly feel like you've got to keep up with everybody else. Your gear goes out of date. You didn't play in a month, you can't tank dungeons anymore. You're too squishy. You got to get the new gear first. Things like that. Or you haven't logged in every day to do your dailies. You're going to have to do dailies for 2 weeks to catch up to us to be able to get into here. Stuff like that. Like all of those are things I've seen before. But if you don't have those, then people can play and come and go and come back. I've heard the devs of Path of Exile say something similar. They were like, we know that when we release a new season, huge influx of players, and as they finish it and they tire of it, our numbers taper off. And then when the next season comes out, they all come back. That's fine. We're not trying to keep people here 24/7. We know that they'll play our game first season, they'll go play something else. They'll play our game on the next season, they'll go play something else. And they've recognized that, and they've built around that, and have been hugely successful because of it.
And I think, I will note, I think there's become a modern version of the subscription that we've seen evolve over the last few years, and even longer than that, in battle passes and paid battle passes, where it's basically a subscription kind of hidden and wrapped with other stuff around it. And I think we've challenged ourselves to ask the same question. can we make a game like this that doesn't have a subscription fee and doesn't have a battle pass fee buried in it as well? Because we think players...
Black Desert Online. BDO has that. I enjoyed BDO for about a year. BDO has got no sub fee, but it has a thing in the game where it's like there's an optional sub. And if you do it, it's like your bag space is doubled, your bank space, the banks is doubled, your XP gain is increased by 50%, you start auto-looting stuff around you. Like, it's a much better experience. And so it's like, yeah, it's not required, but come on. Like, it kind of feels like playing like the trial of the game versus the full game without doing it.
Players are sick of those two. And so this will be a game, you can buy it, you can play it as much or as little as you want. We will respect our players' time, and if they love it, we'll have other stuff that they can buy from us in the future, but we're not going to hold their time hostage, and we want them to be able to go play other games. And hopefully, I would highly recommend they should go check out Guild Wars 2 and Guild Wars 1, because we just announced
Excellent
this weekend
segue,
that we're going
Colin.
to keep supporting those far into the future as well.
Well, there you go. Love to hear that. I have so many questions, but unfortunately, that's all the time we have. So thank you so much to Colin for joining us here at IGN Live to talk all about Guild Wars 3. You can wish list it now for Steam, PlayStation 5, and register at guildwars3.com for a chance to start playing as soon as the beta begins in fall 2027. We have so much more happening here around the summer of gaming, including interviews with the director of Control Resident. So stay tuned to IGN Live.
So just to show, we showed this in a previous video, but if anyone didn't get the message, guildwars3.com. There is a newsletter and beta sign up. You click on this and you can input your email address, and then you receive an email and you click a link to confirm it, and that's it. And then you should start getting stuff in your inbox when they have new news, and there's a chance that you can get into future betas to play the game early. So I myself did that, but that's right there if any of you need it. So we saw the whole video. For me, the biggest new takeaways was the pricing model and the timeline in the game. We already went over this. There's one more thing, and this is kind of... I couldn't really confirm this one. Supposedly, a quote from a PC Gamer article from the Aeon 2 producer. So, NCSoft, which is above ArenaNet, NCSoft has a lot of other products, I misspoke, such as Aeon. And apparently, in this article, NCSoft Chief Business Officer Seung Ook Bake, I apologize, I probably butchered that, reckons Guild Wars 3 and Aeon 2 are different enough to find their own niches. I can't reveal too much because Guild Wars 3 is still under development, he said, but there is a directional difference. Aeon 2 focuses more on massive numbers of players, like RVR. I don't know what that is, maybe Realm versus Realm? The more users, the more fun. Whereas Guild Wars 3 is more about segments of small groups playing that makes the gameplay more fun. That's all I can say at the moment. So I don't know. There's so much information I don't know that I can't really make a decision on how I feel about this. Because, like, at face value, it's like, oh, there's no World v World, there's no world bosses, there's no raids, you know? But maybe he's just saying that the bulk of the game is, like, party system stuff. You know, like 5-man content or 4-man content or whatever the party size is going to be. So I wouldn't get too upset about this yet, because we're missing some key information here. You know, don't be the typical Twitter user here, like, oh, they said World v World is dead. I don't know. I hope there's a World v World, because a lot of people love it. But I don't know. I thought it was worth adding this, but at the same time, include multiple grains of salt, because there's a lot of things we don't know that I think are needed to fully appreciate what he meant by this quote. And that's it. That's what I've got for today. So we've got I'll have links to all of this if you want to like rewatch or reread any of this. But IGN had this interview that had a few new juicy bits of information. Caught Colin here on this Reddit post that was sharing a little bit more information. The game beginning shortly after Grenth becomes a god, but before the Exodus or the first Guild War, and more info soon. So that's it. That's it for today. A couple more juicy bits of information about Guild Wars 3, which is entering beta next year, and I'll let you guys know when I find out some more.